and good day. Thank you very much for joining us. I am Tamara Scott. It's Tamara Scott Live. We give you truth for our time. We help you when the headlines hit home. Here's the deal. If God expects you to live through it, He's directed you how to do it, somewhere in His Word. And so what we do is often take the events of the day, the headlines of the day, and put it with a biblical worldview. How would we behave? Now, for those of you who don't have a biblical worldview, no reason to be offended and no reason to be upset. What it is just great training and great teaching. In fact, in Norway recently, I was so pleased to hear this. David Barton, who is one of the experts on our history here in America, and I think he actually owns the largest number of original documents from our founding fathers. I think he owns the largest private collection of those. So when someone wants to argue the intent or how something was worded, like separation of church and state, he goes back to the original letter that Jefferson wrote to the Danbury Baptist. And so I was hearing him talk just recently, and he was saying that in, I think, Norway, one of the most secular countries in Europe, and I probably should have checked all my facts before we started talking about this on air, but one of the most secular countries, when they had something come up, whether it was taxes, education, whatever it was, a group, the Bible Society there, would just put out a statement on it. They wouldn't give any footnotes or anything else. They just put out a statement, instruction, policy, idea. People started responding so positively that they asked where it was coming from, and they had to admit it was instruction from the Word of God. Imagine where we would be if we listened to the instruction like no inheritance tax. The prince should not take the inheritance of his people. Imagine the things that we would have. We would be so much better off. We used to be that much better off. And so that's just a little help for you. You don't have to have a Christian perspective or a Christian worldview. Can we not still discuss the issues and share those ideas and dialogue together? I think that's what we're missing most often in this country. Have an interesting show for you today. Last night was the Glenn Beck We Will Not Conform event. As you know, last year I was actually at the Glenn Beck Studios with the Beck-Barton Project, several national experts coming together, figuring out how to strategize in stopping the Common Core. When we met last year, it appeared we were up against it. We didn't know if we could ever get it stopped. We knew it would be a miraculous event if we could even get it paused. Look what's happening now. Oklahoma. The governor of Oklahoma, who is also the chair of the National Governors Association, who helped usher in the Common Core standards, Mary Fallin, has signed a bill to repeal and replace the Common Core. And it's not just a name it, rename it bill like Indiana has gotten into. It is a full replace, repeal. We've made great strides. We have other states that are doing the same. And in fact, on the show last night, they mentioned another state. And I'll go to my guest and we can kind of discuss this through. Joining me in studio is a man by the name of Robert Rees, R-E-E-S, Robert Rees. And as I heard him say today, it's not spelled like the candy bar.
No.
It's R-E-E-S.
R-E-E-S, no at the end.
So thank you for joining me in studio. You're rather new to Des Moines.
Yes, just a few months, that's it.
But you're not new to the issues, I can tell.
Oh, well, no.
You've been dealing with these for quite some time. And so you were at the theater. For those of you who don't know, Glenn Beck had an event over 700 theaters across the nation dealing with the Common Core. And we can thank Michelle Mockman and Glenn Beck, David Barton, Jane Robbins, Sandra Stelsky, James Milgram, a handful of people. Some you may not know and recognize like you do Glenn Beck. But thankfully, someone got to him and he picked it up and ran with it. And I give him great credit for us being able to make the strides we have in stopping the Common Core.
Yeah, he wrote his book, Conform, with Kyle Olson. Kyle Olson probably wrote most of it, and then Glenn Beck gave his input on it and everything. And that was kind of one of his first forays into the Common Core issue. If you read the book's actually, the vast majority of the book's actually just about our education system in general and the fallacies of the education system. But then it goes into Common Core and how that's started to get implemented based on the history of how the system's gotten corrupted in the first place. And this is just it's just gone down that further on that line of corruption in the system. And it's just about power, it's about money, it's about control of people.
You just pretty much nailed it right there. It's about power, money, and control. That's pretty much exactly it. I'm going to put the book up here for everybody who hasn't seen it. They handed these out free at the theater last night. Of course, I ordered mine, purchased it before it was even out for print. But you gave these out in the theater last night.
Yeah, I gave about 5 books away just randomly to people.
And so here we are moving forward. what did you take? What was your takeaway from the event last night?
Well, my takeaway was first of all was just the amount of interest from a lot of people that I didn't realize they would be. I wasn't sure what the attendance was going to be. First of all, it ended up being a packed house. Even the theater management afterwards came up to me and said they were stunned. They didn't expect that many people. They came in about halfway through just to see what was going on with the show. They didn't really peek at the audience, and they said, and then when somebody cracked a joke and the whole audience erupted in laughter, they're like, "How many people are in here?" And so that's when they peeked and they're like, "Oh my goodness, this place is packed out." And so for me, it was pretty inspirational to see at least that many Des Moineans. I don't know about other areas, but at least here in Des Moines, how many people were enthusiastic and wanted to learn more, wanted to be part of it as well. And then the other part of it just showed me kind of along those lines was at the end, Glenn asked anybody who's involved with being an activist right now with Common Core to stand up. And I know you were one of them, and there was about 3 or 4 others who stood up. And what I was surprised about is right afterwards how many people flocked to them. They wanted to get more information. They wanted to let them know, I want to help. What can I do? Are you guys active in Grimes? Are you active in here? And so I guess one of my biggest takeaways was how many people are already aware and want to do something about it.
Right. And there are quite a handful in Iowa as across this nation, and we'll see Terry Sassville is going to join us shortly, an activist out of Georgia. We have activists on this show all the time, and we also have what we consider the experts. Mm-hmm. I'll be the first person to tell you, don't look to the experts. If you sense a need, you can fix it. God's prompting your heart. But we're thankful to have the experts on the right side of stopping Common Core, and we have them on the show often. But we also like to talk to the moms and dads because they're the feet on the ground. They talked last night about John Epolato, the dad out of Utah, who just wanted the information that was collected on his own children. That's all he wanted. And the school was going to charge him $10,000. Yeah. He's been a guest on this show. We've had him talk about that issue. But and Ryan, if you would at this time call Michelle. Let's have Michelle join us. She's one of the activists here in Iowa that has been meeting with us with the governor. And we'll get the latest update of what we just had in a conversation with him. As you know, we have the Iowa Corps. Mm-hmm. And so people think that that's not necessarily the Common Core. They are the exact same thing. Sandy Salmon, representative, one of our great representatives who's right on this issue. Ralph Watts, Representative Hartzell, Jason Schultz, who's going to be a senator. Brad Zahn's a senator. Dennis Guth is a senator. We have a handful of great people on these issues. But Sandy Salmon says it this way. Common Core or Iowa Core is like a chocolate chip cookie. Iowa Core is the chocolate chip. Mm-hmm. The difference is you're not going to be tested on the chocolate chip. The test will be on the Common Core.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter what you call it, they're going to teach to the Common Core.
Right. Or at least the tests are going to be that, so you can teach us something else. But then you're setting your students up for even bigger failure because if you try to teach your kids what you think is best, if a teacher or a local school district decides we think this is what we need to teach our kids, and they've decided they're going to do that way, as long as the state has adopted Common Core, the testing is going to be based upon Common Core teaching and principles and what they've taught. And so it's one of these situations where unless you conform, that's why the event last night was called We Will Not Conform, and unless you conform, you're actually setting your kids up for a worse situation.
For failure.
Even though you might actually be teaching them better than what the Common Core could teach them, you're setting them up for failure.
That's the frustrating thing is the age we're heading into, the kids who actually know good information on the AP history exam, for those students out there, 500,000 students, advanced placement students, the top students in history in America, who will take that AP exam that's now been realigned by David Coleman, architect of the Common Core. The kids who score the worst may actually be the kids who know the best, know the most, because they know information that's not the, quote, required information on that exam, which is very limited in scope.
Well, one of the things that came up last night with the kids last night as well, because they had one little part of the We Will Not Conform event last night where they actually talked to some kids and some parents. And one of the kids explained, I think, one of the fallacies of the Common Core, which is how they want you to, when you do your homework, they want to show all your work. Now, I had teachers growing up, they always said, show your work. That's part of it.
They want to make sure you didn't copy that answer from Johnny.
Exactly. They want to make sure you didn't steal the answer from somebody else. But the problem is that the way they want you to see the work is it has to be exactly the way they taught it to you. If you have some sort of, I remember that, we used to have games growing up as kids, maybe rhymes or some other game in our head that we would come up with a solution, particularly to math problems. Everybody has their different ways of remembering multiplication tables and things like that, right? Well, if you might have some sort of game or system in your head where you go, well, I'm going to take this number, and that automatically means this. If that's not the Common Core way and you show that work that way, it's wrong. It doesn't matter if you came up with the right answer. If you didn't do it the Common Core way of doing it, which is very convoluted and strange, then it's wrong.
So somebody who's gifted like an Einstein is going to be penalized.
Absolutely.
They won't be allowed to, because instead of no child be left behind, it's no child will move forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you got kids. My kids are this way. I was this way. Once I see numbers, certain numbers, I can actually I don't necessarily memorize it. I just remember it. I remember, okay, 9 minus 8 is 1. It's just memorized. I don't have to factor in what this is. And so even if you make it a 3-digit number or a 4-digit number, sometimes I can see that number and I automatically know what the answer is without even having to do any work. Those kids are punished in the Common Core system.
They will be. You're absolutely right. And we know from homeschooling, people who can do long division in their head miraculously. In fact, one of the online shows on network TV even talked about some of these kids, how they can do it they would be penalized. These kids who don't draw and of course we have the lattice math that they're teaching in the Common Core, much longer, much more detailed, drawn-out process, going to slow our kids down. And these kids who aren't using this will be penalized. Michelle is on the phone. Let's go to her very quickly. Michelle, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
I wanted to bring you in. Robert, we were talking about all the activists across Iowa, and of course this show goes across the nation, and we have guests and visitors and listeners across the globe, actually. But in Iowa, there are several of us, and I want to, I guess, make this point. Concerned Women for America has been very active on stopping the Common Core. But what gives us our strength is so many of us coming together all over the state with our various gifts, just what Robert and I were talking about, those gifts that we squashed and not appreciated in the Common Core. Whether it's the engineer we have and Heather Stansel, who can, put those numbers out and really evaluate the math program, whether it's Shane's ability to write about what happens and get it out there for people, Leslie and her ability to kind of organize people online, Karen up in Mason City, Jen Jones on these. We just have a whole group of people who are really working together. You are one who are right near the Capitol, so you're able to meet with legislators, and you're very able to articulate. You met with the governor last week. I
did, and I'll just share with everyone briefly. We definitely appreciated the opportunity to meet with him, and what was amazing is we packed this room. And there were people from Sioux City, from northern Iowa, from Council Bluffs, who took days off of their job to come and meet with him for 15 minutes. So the 15-minute meeting on Common Core turned into 20 minutes, so that's what we were allowed to talk about. And I actually just went in to try to, unfortunately, everybody knows this, is that for some reason Governor Branstad thinks that Iowa Core is different and is not Common Core. And I don't know if it's his executive office, if it's the people he surrounds himself with, or honestly, just point blank, the Department of Ed and the state of Iowa is beholden to so much money that that's what they're telling him. So my goal was to show that actually we are in Common Core. And the only way to get out of it is if we get out of the Smarter Balance test. And I believe that we were able to articulate that. He luckily just came back from the National Governors Association meeting where he had an earful from Mary Fallin with Oklahoma, who just repealed it, and the Supreme Court in Oklahoma upheld her decision. So I was able to point out there's already been a precedent set. Now you have states like Wisconsin and in Utah, literally days after that meeting, that the governors are like, yeah, I think we need to get out. And what's interesting is Common Core was not even on that agenda at all for during the entire meeting, but it came up as a very hot topic. I don't know what is going on, but the governor did say that he will be making some type of announcement regarding what we brought him up, what we talked about. Now, what that is, I do not know. We've been told this multiple times, and then unfortunately we saw the executive order that rang hollow and did nothing. So I think we need to keep the pressure on. But the one opening that he said that I have never heard him bring up or anyone in his staff is he did ask us at the table, if not this, then what? Mm-hmm. And I thought that was an amazing window to say, you know what? Let's do A, B, C, and D. And so we were ready for that question, because if you do come in and all you do is complain and you don't have a solution, you're whining. And we don't want to whine. We want to be solution-oriented. And we came in prepared for that. So we all know as a nation, standards are here to stay. I don't have an issue with that. But what was interesting is in November of last year, the University of Iowa, who does write up the Iowa assessments, came out with a statement, and they said, you know what? Since Iowa core changed to Common Core in 2010, our assessments no longer line up to what the kids are being taught. They actually took a panel of 19 judges and said, okay, align these standards with this part of the test. Of the 19 judges, there were 11 different answers. So the University of Iowa has to change now the Iowa assessments by 2015 next spring to align with the Common Core standards.
And I think that was part of the concern of those folks in the group, is that if this is the change that the governor is mentioning, it's not going to be a helpful change.
No, all it does is all he's doing is renaming it. And what we have a problem with are the standards. And we've been doing it for 2 years. And similar to your last guest, I have my kids now, honestly, in 5th grade, don't know as much as they did in 3rd grade.
And for our listeners, your husband's an engineer, correct?
Correct. And he is not even able to help them with their math. And he goes to parent-teacher conferences with a book. And he said, what is this? And the teachers say, we have no control. This is what we're given. This is the way we have to teach. No one has ever asked the teachers, what do you think? They always ask the administrators, and the administrators are very closely tied to the Department of Ed. And I think we go back to the teachers and ask them what they want, and we'll get a better answer.
And that reminds me, if you are a teacher or you know of a teacher, whether in Iowa or across this nation, legislators do want to hear from you. They absolutely want to know your point. They hear from us, the lobbyists, the activists at the State House, but they want to hear from you in the classroom, how it's impacting you, how it's affecting the students. We've had Meg Norris on this show several times. Meg Norris, I consider her such a sweet kindred spirit, and we agree on probably nothing, but we agree on the danger of Common Core. Meg quit teaching in the public classroom because of what she saw happening to her students, pulling their hair out, stabbing themselves with pencils, picking, cutting. She saw the demoralization of the classroom and the loss of interest in true education. So, Michelle, we have a group here in Iowa that is working together to move us forward. And we know Sandra Stosky, who is on the validation committee for Common Core for the English Literature Standards and refused to sign off, has a set of standards out there already that folks can use that are better than the Common Core. We have, is it the Massachusetts standards that were actually better than the Common Core before they went to the Common Core? We have those standards we can go from. So there are things that we can do, things that we can take back to our legislators and to our governor. And so what would you say to your fellow Iowans out there that they need to be talking? Right now is an election year, and I don't bring this up to be ornery or to cause problems for any political person. For those who know, my other hat is political. Disclaimer, I'm a Republican National Committee woman for the state. I don't bring it up to cause problems for those in my party. But as Matt Kibbe, I think he's one of the CEOs for FreedomWorks,
yeah,
wrote an article, the Common Core is set to be the defining issue. He said, few things can bring people together, draw bridges, and connect people across this polarized party situation that we have in America. This is one. Like I just said, Meg Norris and I work together. This is nonpartisan. This is bipartisan. It crosses all lines. Party, economics, education. It doesn't matter what your background is. We all want what is best for our children. And if once you see the Common Core, you see the danger of it. Michelle, what would you say to our listeners?
You know what, honestly, Tamara, it's been wonderful. My phone used to ring off the hook to say, what is Common Core? Can you come do a talk for us? I don't understand what it is. And I would say there's a huge shift. In the last 5-6 weeks, my phone has been ringing off the hook saying, what do I do? How do I get out of it? What are we doing? And I tell everyone to call your legislator, tell them your concern, and not only bring up Common Core, but to say, what are you doing to get out of it? What are we going to do to make it better? And I honestly think we need to give the power back to the people and to the legislators, because unfortunately, a few years ago, our legislation turned over all of our education power to the Iowa Department of Ed. They are an unelected body by the people who are controlling what is going in and out of that classroom. And I think we need to change the law put it back into the people. And that's what I tell people. Call your legislator. Tell them what you think. Tell them, show them your kids' homework. Tell them what they're doing. What are they doing to change them? And change the law to put the power back to the people. And I think that's the only way it's going to change. And this never would have happened if we would have had that power in the first place.
It's more responsibility for the parents, but it's exactly what we need to have happen. We have to go to a break here. We need to keep our sponsors happy. Hope you will stay tuned with us. When we come back, we'll be with our American Family Radio audience, and so we'll look forward to having them join us as well. Stay tuned, and we'll be back right after these messages.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershad.
I'm administrative mmanager
I'm the senior technician.
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed rider it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening. They're gonna wanna know what your challenges are. Then they're gonna come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me. But is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed rider, it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
Restoring hope, open my heart to sing, taking the darkness inside, revealing your light, restoring hope.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Hi, I am Tamara Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. We are powered by Webcast One Studio, webcastonelive.com, webcastonelive.com. If you want to join us, the conversation happens live each Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Central, and then portions of the show come with the American Family Radio listening audience, and we're always so pleased to join them with the American Family Radio listening audience. We join them as the Restoring Hope program. J. Michael McCoy is good to share his air with me, and I'm thankful for that. And it fits because while he often deals with personal issues, addictions, those types of things, and restoring hope to individuals, you have to do that before you can have a collective and a community that's healthy. But what we do here in the studio is help you on the outside, because we know a lot of those pressures are what create the issues for us as individuals, dealing with the headlines every day. So we give you hope when the headlines hit home. And if you want to be part of that conversation during the live conversation at 10 a.m., it's 855-244-0077, 855-244-0077. And any show you want to listen to, you're always welcome to go to Tamara Scott Live on YouTube. Tamara Scott Live on YouTube. Our archives are there. The interviews we've done, Alveda King, Rick Santorum, a host of others. You're welcome to go there and listen to the archives and listen to a portion all you want. And there's an app where you can get them on your phone as well. We want to thank our sponsors, Christians for America. Christians for America, we appreciate them coming alongside and making it possible for us to be here with you and get information to you. We've just come back for the earlier part of our conversation again that you can get on the YouTube archive. And of course, if you ever want to contact us, email truthforourtime. truthforourtime@gmail.com is just an easy way to get in contact with us. The Facebook page, Truth for Our Time, as well. You can get on my Facebook page, Tamara Scott, and of course, a lot of the things we talk about are Common Core. So you can get on the Stop Common Core Iowa Facebook page. There are all kinds of avenues that you can get to us specifically with the information you want. Joining us in studio is Robert Reese. Thank you for joining us. Robert is his own talk show host on another network.
Yeah.
But because of that, as talk show hosts are, you're involved in a whole host of issues.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much have to keep my finger in a little bit of everything.
You do, don't you?
Yeah.
Which probably makes us better citizens, and is probably where we all should be.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, definitely.
And then joining us on the phone is Terry Sassville. Terry is one of those activists that's been busy around the country combating this Common Core. And then in studio, Denise, I see your pictures, bless your heart. Denise Buback is here. Denise is the State Outreach Coordinator for Concerned Women for America, but she is also very active with APAC on the national board.
Yes.
Okay, and she's traveled to Israel just last January. And so you may want to put earphones on, too, so you can hear Terry as well. We're going to start out this conversation with Terry and Robert and Denise. We're talking about the Common Core. Terry, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation.
Did I lose her?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. I'm so sorry. So you were watching in one of the theaters across the nation, the Glenn Beck event. You've been on this issue. What is the organization that you're working through, Terry?
I started a Facebook group, Georgians to Stop Common Core.
And what is the status in Georgia right now?
Well, the status in Georgia right now is we have Common Core. Our bill did not make it out of the House Education Committee after it was approved by the full Senate. And so we're going through another year in the throes of Common Core. And yesterday was Election Day in Georgia, and we had a runoff, actually, not an election, but anyway, a runoff election. And we have one candidate who supports Common Core and one candidate who opposes it, who we feel like can mitigate the damage to our schools and to our kids, first and foremost. And as of this morning, the best guess we have is they're about 800 votes apart, and there will probably be a recount no matter what. So that will be the litmus test in Georgia. And
we were just talking about that earlier. It will be the defining issue in 2014 and very much in 2016. Now, you watched the Glenn Beck's. What did you take away from the presentation last night, Terry?
You know, I have to admit I went in with a little bit of trepidation because they were a little bit mysterious about what it was going to be. And, you know, you usually pay your money, you go see a movie, and this was going to be an interactive event, and this has never been done before, and we're going to come away with actions. And, you know, it scared me a little bit as just a grassroots person that they were going to come in a heavy-handed way and say, this is the way we're going to do it. And it was none of that. It was wonderful. They did such a great job. They brought grassroots together. They brought leaders from all segments of advocacy, and it was just a great big, encouraging, re-energizing session where people celebrated what has happened, talked about the way forward and what we can all do and how we can work together and get more people involved. And of course, they had everybody interacting on Twitter and texting answers to poll questions. And I am the last dinosaur in America who doesn't even have texting on her flip phone. I get a lot of flack for my flip phone, but I really just don't want all that technology following me around. So last night's the first time I've ever regretted not having it.
Well, I heard Robert talking earlier today about some of those polls. Robert, do you remember the stats off the top of your head?
I do. I actually still have them here in my smartphone. I apologize, Terry. I'm one of those that.
I'm proud of you.
One of the so some of the polls here was the best way to spread Common Core. 64% answered that Twitter. They found Twitter was the best method to use to spread the message of Common Core.
And I see you're on Twitter, Terry, so you got that down.
I don't understand it, but I do it a lot.
That's exactly where I'm at.
Terry, nobody understands it, but we're all there.
I feel better then. I feel better.
And for our listeners, if you're not comfortable, you're not familiar with the Common Core, I don't want to go back to the basics of it right now, but it's basically a top-down, invasive takeover of your classroom that inhibits local control and parental rights. And it's inappropriate lesson sequence. It's just bad planning for your children, and it's a disastrous outcome is what we're seeing from those who have been in education and those who are trying to teach it. Robert, go ahead with some of those others. And if you want information, go to American Principles Project, Pioneer Institute, Truth in American Education. There are several groups that you can go to for more information on the Common Core. We'll help you get caught up. Like I said, if you want to email Stop Common Core Iowa or truthforourtime at gmail.com. Robert, I know you have an email as well.
I do. Just get me on Twitter or Facebook at the Robert Reese, and that's REES, no E at the end.
Terry, your email or your Facebook?
Well, my personal Facebook is
whichever one you want people to reach you at to get information on Common Core.
Oh, okay. It's Terry, T-E-R-I, and the last name is spelled SASSEVILLE.
Okay.
And that's me on Facebook.
And Denise, I know if they hit Concerned Women for America, if they hit director at iowa.cwfa.org, they can get information that way as well. Next poll.
Next poll was, do you know the name of at least one local or state school board member? And this was one I was nervous about to see what the results were going to be. Came in at 62% said yes. 62% said yes, they knew at least one name of a school board, local or state school board member, which is a good number. But obviously, if you got a lot of people here who are active who are upset about Common Core, you would think that number would be much higher because you need to work with the school board in order to deal with this on the local level.
And Terry, are they elected in your state or appointed?
The state school board is appointed.
Oh.
Ours is appointed as well. So it does make it a little more, it's not that you voted for one of them, but for your local, you certainly voted for those members, and you certainly should know them and be watching them, holding them accountable and communicating, not just letting them know when they've messed up, but working with them and offering them good and positive alternatives. Next poll.
Next poll was, which politician with a national profile do you think leads the charge on versus Common Core? And the answer came in was pretty overwhelmingly with two individuals, Senator Ted Cruz and Senator Rand Paul.
What'd that say to either you, Robert, Terry, Denise? What's that say to you guys?
That told me that the people watching the event last night were were very active. They like people who are standing up against everything, because I don't necessarily know that Ted Cruz or Rand Paul have really been fighting against Common Core that much.
That's what I thought too.
That's where I kind of still was like,
you know what I put in?
What's that?
Grassley.
Me too.
That's
Me too.
good.
And I would have said Bobby
Had
Jindal.
a
Yeah, I'm surprised. Ted Cruz.
Jindal was on there.
Jindal was on there, but it was like overwhelmingly Ted Cruz and Rand Paul, and
I
so
am surprised.
And they're both from Texas, where they supposedly don't have Common Core.
But they have the C-scope and pretty much are battling.
they have a version of Common Core still. They have their state version. Yeah.
Very interesting.
The other poll, which is interesting, they asked, which is the best alternative to public schools? 57% answered homeschools. Next closest was 25% with private schools, and then the last was charter schools, just taking up the rest. So, and that one actually surprised a lot of the people in the crowd and a lot of the individuals involved with it because they thought it might be charter schools, maybe it'd be a little bit more balanced. But 57%, more than half, so they thought homeschool was the best option to public school system right now.
Terry, what do you think on that?
That's not my area because I don't have kids in school right now. So I really wasn't focused on that.
I did everything with my kids. We public, we private, we homeschooled. And so for me, I think homeschooling is a great, great option. Here's what I wish someone would do. Henry Burke, I'm going to call him. He did the great state-specific cost analysis on having Common Core. He said states that don't have Common Core will save millions. I would like someone to do a analysis on what it would cost the average family to homeschool versus private school versus public school. Not that it should be made on a financial footing, but here's what I want people to understand. And I think I heard this on your show earlier this morning, Robert. They were talking about seeing the redwood tree. It was an ad, and this kid had seen the redwood tree, and it just really expanded this kid's horizon and what he was learning hands-on. And it was actually an advertisement for forest something vacations. But my thought was, you are going to teach your kids so much more. And if you would homeschool, and if you're a parent out there, and I think this is probably the whole reason for the show today, especially if you're an American Family Radio audience, I think this is probably the purpose for the show today. If you're a parent out there and you think you're not qualified, understand God gave you those gifts. He uniquely designed you to raise the kids he gave you. And if you lay them out with prayer, he will cover them and he will meet your needs. The teacher who came along to teach my daughter calculus worked at Boeing and designed the program for the Black Hawk helicopter. My daughter had 2 in her class. It was essentially like private tutoring for the homeschool co-op that we had. God brought people in, and my whole thing with the commercial is, what we would save, the cost that just public school, between your lunch money, having to have this shoe, having to have this practice, this uniform, this clothes to keep up, the cost of running back and forth, the gas to be this practice, the money that you save, the peace that comes into your home when you homeschool, you could probably take that vacation to see that redwood tree and teach your kids yourself. And as someone said, you're teaching 2 generations at the same time.
Well, the other point of that you're making too is more money doesn't mean better education.
No.
So you can assess it. We actually homeschool our kids. We pulled them out 2 years ago, and we were nervous as all get out. Yeah, I'm a smart guy. My wife is a brilliant person as well. But it didn't matter. It's like, wow, when you're taking on this, because, and it was brought up last night, the system has taught us you can't teach your kids. You have to have special education to be able to teach your children. That's what the system has taught us. And we, as like everybody else, we kind of fell into that a little bit and said, yeah, I don't know if I'm qualified to teach my kids. I don't know if I have enough patience to teach my kids. And then literally, my daughter has dyslexia, and she's got other learning disabilities where it's hard for her to recall words and numbers and some other things. And as she fell further and further behind. We tried to work with the school systems. We just couldn't do it. And finally said, enough's enough. Let's just try it ourselves. See what happens. And we read the Bible every night as a family before we go to bed. And we always take turns, all the kids. And we've been doing it ever since they were little kids. We'd read help them read it and everything. Well, now here she was 8 years old. She's at the point where she should be able to read most of the stuff by herself, right? And she would struggle. Homeschooler, literally 1 month of homeschooling. I told my wife, did you hear tonight, and when we're going to bed, did you hear tonight when we were reading the scriptures? She said, what? I said, our daughter read the entire verses that she had to read without stumbling. And 1 month of homeschooling. And all we were doing is struggling, going, we can't do this. We made a big mistake. We got to put her back in school. We don't know what we're doing. 1 month in, she was reading her scriptures better already. And scriptures obviously are not easy to read. We're reading King James Version as well. So
we had similar experience. My son was in 8th grade. Of all my kids, he just could care less. We bought every book we could on hunting, warriors, everything. And we were doing read the Bible at night. I had one who would read 8 chapters and make us listen. So we had a game. You could only read 11, and you had to read 3. You had to read at least 3 verses and no more than 11 verses. And then you called someone's name, and they had to jump in where you left off. That kept everybody on their toes. Yes. In that short time, my son became a terrific reader. The Bible tells us the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Yeah. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Terry, do you have anything to add on that point?
Well, honestly, I come from a point of educating my daughter with autism. And incidental learning that happens just through life is always more meaningful because it's experiential. And there's context to it, and there's just a richness of the experience that makes it memorable, and it gets, it gets in there and it stays. So I think homeschooling is wonderful.
And so in private schooling as well, if that's what you decide to do. But these are your kids. These are the only possessions that you can take to heaven with you. And you can't take them. They have to get there on their own. But they are your only earth possessions that you will have in heaven with you. And so we need to be doing everything we possibly can to make sure that they have that opportunity, that they're not tainted. We hear so much about the Slurpees, the big size soda that Michelle Obama is so concerned about, the health aspects. And I always think nobody's thinking about what's going in the brain. These kids are literally being poisoned with toxic thought, toxic process. And so if for no other reason, I'm so pleased, Robert, that you were here. Terry, that you're on the phone. Denise, that you're here. That if no other reason, if you're listening, I want you to think. I want you to evaluate, and I want you to pray where God has you send your kids this fall. This may be the time for you to make that decision. And it's scary because it's all on your shoulders. If they mess up in the public school, it's like that wasn't their strength. They didn't get their math. When it's you as a parent, everybody looks at you. Mm-hmm. But God will provide. He absolutely will provide. And as my husband finally said to me, "Hun, whatever you miss, whatever gap they have will be better than the crap they get in the public school. There's just so much mud there now. And if you teach in the public school, that is not against you, but you know as well as I do, there's so much time on other things than the important things and the training that they used to get."
And most of the teachers I talked to, I had family members who are teachers, and I had family members who've left teaching because they got frustrated. And they said, look, I'm trying to teach my kids what I think is best, and I'm being told from somebody, some bureaucrat who's never been a teacher, who's never even tried, who doesn't even have kids, what I'm supposed to teach. And they get so frustrated. I have family members who left teaching because they said enough's enough, I can't do it anymore. So it's not a knock on teachers, because teachers are trying their best with what they have, and what they have is wrong. And now it's coming from a federal bureaucrat instead of even a local bureaucrat.
Which makes it harder to change. And we know with this testing, some of these kids are tested online. The testing takes 6 to 12 weeks. Mm-hmm. So if you have a junior who's in that first week, the junior who gets tested in the 12th week may get 12 more weeks of academic training, or they may not, because we're hearing that no training's taking place during that time. It's all testing. So what they're doing is sorting our kids. They're not teaching them, they're sorting them. If standards were if standards were the end all, then all of us who'd ever joined Weight Watchers would be thin, right? If it's just setting the standard, right? I mean,
absolutely.
So this is a great idea, but it doesn't do anything except for I loved what that assistant principal said last night. Here's another person who was in the system and didn't like Glenn Beck at all, doesn't want to work with him yet.
Philosophically has opposing views and viewpoints as him, except for on Common Core.
Except for Common Core. And she said these tests are designed to make students fail, because unless they have to retake a test, rebuy a study text, there's no money in it.
Yeah, she said there's no money in achievement. I wrote it down. I was like, that's a beautiful sentence. There's no money in achievement. There's no money in passing. There's only money in failing, because then they can retake the test and force them to retake the test and then retake the test. And the testing companies make money each time the tests are taken. And they have people who are, and that's why I mentioned earlier that this is a system that it's about top-down instruction, which is a flaw, first of all. Everything's done better when it's done locally. But it's also a system where if you want to find out what's going on with Common Core, this is a quintessential, perfect example of follow the money. You follow the money and you go, oh, that's why Common Core is being shoved down our throats. This is a money issue. The states have all accepted Common Core because they needed funding from the federal government. Oh, we're cash strapped. We know, well, if you want Department of Education dollars, we'll give you this much, but we're going to give you this much if you accept Common Core. Yeah, sign me up, no problem.
And the other part of that is Bill Gates has given so much money.
The money behind it, not just from Bill Gates. Bill Gates gets pointed out, but there's a lot of big corporations who are behind this because they're looking to make a lot of big money. Textbooks alone is a multi-billion-dollar industry. multi-billion-dollar industry. And there's just a handful of companies now, less than a handful of companies, who are the ones going, yeah, you're probably right.
Pearson.
Pearson. Who's making all the money.
Who also has great input on the test. So they're going to have the textbook that most accurately fits the test, which again is a conflict of interest. It's just not what we've ever had in America. And again, this is going to be a monopoly on your education. We know competition is what helps us. And this was brought about that we wanted every student to be in the same spot in every grade, so if they moved, they would know where they were at. That doesn't work. There's a variety of reasons I can give you that doesn't work. Your products are not the same to even start with, so your testing will be flawed. But two, unless a teacher teaches the exact same lesson, the exact same month, the exact same way, it's not going to work when Johnny moves and gets the same thing in spring that somebody else taught in fall. But if we were really concerned about kids having the exact same starting place, why wouldn't English as an official language be the first thing we do?
There you go. One of the things that Glenn kept saying about Bill Gates was he referenced a speech that he gave to a legislative group in 2009, and he was talking about there are going to be customers lined up around the block. The phrase in that speech that always sticks with me is, he went on to say, this will unleash powerful market forces. And just as you've brought up, Tamara, there's going to be such a monopoly that once the pendulum swings past that tipping point, I may be mixing my metaphors there will be no turning back, and Common Core will be permanent, good, bad, or indifferent. We're going to be stuck with this because they're not just changing education, they're changing the education markets. And a lot of the folks that I talk to in the Georgia Department of Education and the supporters around, they say, well, look, if it's not good, we'll change it. We're going to do what's best for Georgia students. And they don't realize they won't be able to do that. That option will be off the table because this is such a behemoth, and it is infiltrating everything. I call it educational kudzu. I don't know if y'all have that in Iowa. But
hey, I'm from Tennessee originally. I'm used to that kudzu stuff.
There you go. Kudzu wraps around everything, and it grows a foot a day. It's just all-encompassing, and that's what we're going to be stuck with.
So, Terry, can I ask you this? Because after last night's event, here you are an activist over in Georgia, and you've been trying to fight this. You've been trying to get bills put on the table. After last night's event, what are you – because now we look at it and go, hey, that was great. They got people pumped up, and we're supposed to get an action plan that they're supposed to email to us. But what are you hoping comes out after this We Will Not Conform event from last night? What are you hoping that happens, particularly in Georgia and the rest of the country?
Honestly, the biggest obstacle I think we have been facing is public awareness.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So that's always going to be the main thing, and that's why I'm so grateful to Tamara for what she does every week. She's got somebody out there talking about Common Core. If we can get people educated, they get on board.
Thank you, Terry. Terry has been our guest by phone, TerriSasseville. Find her on Facebook, and then Stop Common Core in Georgia if you want to join the force there. Somewhere in your state, somebody's working against Common Core. Get on Facebook, just do a search. You'll find likely a page where you can get help. We're going to come back after this messages. You're welcome to join us on the archive. For those of you who are in the American Family Radio, we'll be losing you after this break, but you can get this because Denise Bubeck she's got just darling pictures here from kids. Are these going to Israel or coming from Israel? They're going to Israel. We're going to be talking about what's happening right now in Israel. And Denise has her APAC information and knowledge with her. And I know Robert has good knowledge of this as well. We've got to go, but understand, it is up to you. You have full power to make things happen. Be encouraged and never be complacent.
I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit, you're our hero!
Hey, what's wrong? Logan wants Let's Rock Elmo for his birthday, but since Steve lost his job, I don't think we can afford it. What did you do for money last year when you and John were struggling to make ends meet?
My secret? I went to Me and Mommy to Be. We sold all of Megan and Ryan's clothes and toys there. They give back the highest percentage on their items in the area, and it was so easy.
Megan's clothes? She's 15.
Yes, they can sign newborn through trendy teens. We're not struggling now, but I'm going to keep saving and making money at me and Mommy to Be.
Metro Ford's on everywhere. Metro Ford's on everywhere.
See 'em here, see 'em there. You got bad credit? We don't care.
Metro Ford's on everywhere. Metro Ford's on everywhere.
Visit emetroford.com for your guaranteed credit approval. Good credit, bad credit, no credit. Everybody drives with guaranteed credit approval at emetroford.com.
Metro Ford's on everywhere.
Visit emetroford.com today.
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places. Especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart. And it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent.
And I am Tamara Scott. Thank you for staying tuned with us as we bring you truth for your time. We just ended our restoring hope, and there is always hope as long as we have Jesus. Frankly, and without it, I don't know what kind of hope people think they have. But we've been talking about the Common Core. We're going to shift over to Israel. But when we were off during the break, good point. Robert brought up. The next thing is the action. But here's what I want you to understand. There will be action plans coming out. Glenn Beck's going to put one out, but don't wait for those. If you see something that needs to be done, God may have shown it to you. You may be the one who's supposed to stand. Go and tackle it, address it kindly, politely, always with consideration of others. But don't be afraid to stand and ask questions. And it may be that you're the one who's supposed to fix that problem right then, not somebody else. So you can look to those plans, but don't wait for them. Move forward when there's an opening. And by all means, before school starts this fall, figure out where you're going to send your kids. Don't send them into a classroom with strangers. Think that through. Every fall, we send our kids into classrooms with people we've never met. We don't know their worldview. We don't know what their thoughts are. We don't know how they react, respond. We just assume because they're in that school building, they're okay. Think about what your school building looks like now, too. It's fenced in. It's gated. You're not allowed in unless you have a pass and permission. You never just get to spontaneously walk into a child's classroom. It's much like what?
Prison.
The prison system. It's exactly
I thought that when I was a kid, so it's even worse now.
It's worse now. All right. So, Denise, we're going to shift it to our Israel conversation. You were there in January. You have on your phone the Red app. Tell folks about the Red Alert app.
Okay, the Red Alert app, you can download it from the iTunes store. You have to have a smartphone. But the Red Alert app, every time a bomb or a rocket is fired into Israel from the Hamas, the alert goes off, and it tells what city the rocket has been fired into.
When it first happened, it was so eerie. Mm-hmm. It was late at night, and it was so eerie. And I kind of teared up that, man, how would that feel if that were coming in? When we were in Serdot,
mm-hmm.
Am I saying it right? Serdot.
Mm-hmm.
There were bus stop looking things on every block, but they were bomb shelters.
Fortified bomb shelters. 15 seconds. I mean, they're strategically placed 15 seconds apart. And we sent Ryan.
Ryan, if you want to put any of those pictures up at any time, go ahead. The ones where Denise sent you of the Child's Play Center. We went there. It's a fortified building where kids can at least play on a playground without having to run for shelter.
Right.
So incredibly sad. So we know right now they just closed the airport. Mm-hmm. Your thoughts on that? Because I have mine.
Go ahead.
You guys want to go first?
Well, obviously, this is I mentioned it earlier this morning on my radio show, and you can follow me on Twitter at @TheRobertReese. And it's a big win for Hamas.
Exactly,
very big.
It's a big win for Hamas because it's not just the United States closing down our traffic there, but several of the key European airlines have also decided to stop going there. So this is huge. This is a huge win for Hamas. Now, granted, it is to be a temporary close, but and there's questions about whether or not they should have closed it. Maybe we acted too fast to try to close it, things like that, because it didn't hit the airport. It landed near the airport. Pretty much everything else has been fired towards the airport has been knocked down. So maybe this might have been a too quick of an action on our part or other European airlines' parts. But you can see where they're afraid. They're like, man, there's some turmoil over there. We don't want to send our citizens in and out of
It's a liability issue.
It's a liability issue.
And that's what's killing us. You can't hire an employee right now because of your liability. If you want to give somebody a second chance, it's difficult because of your liability. So again, it just comes out of the Common Core. All these things we're trying to do to ensure perfection and ensure standards causes more problems in so many other levels.
But did you know, right as I was coming in on Twitter, they opened the Negev airport for airlines. So big airlines are flying into Israel as
Israel
we
is
speak.
so incredibly...
So they're quick.
Their
innovative.
ingenuity, their innovative...
Resiliency.
Yeah.
It showed up right away. I mean, it was like within a half hour. I mean, I saw it close down and then they're open.
And here's what we need to understand. Israel, we heard this at the AIPAC forum in which you were a presenter on the panel. Israel uses weapons to protect its people.
Mm-hmm.
Hamas uses people to protect its weapons. Mm-hmm. When you and I were there, they explained that before they bomb a house or because Hamas will store weapons in a hospital, in a school, in a mosque. So before they're going to take that out, they leaflet the area, they call, and then they do a tap. If people don't leave that building, they do a tap to clear the area.
Correct.
Which is just a small little explosion.
Without great damage.
Yep.
And then they'll send it. But what I think's happened since January, since we were there, is Hamas is now shuffling women and children into those buildings.
Right.
Yeah. And, even when you have Secretary of State John Kerry coming out and verbally lambasting Hamas for using human shields, you know that things have gotten pretty bad.
Right.
When you got John Kerry, who's hasn't really been that pro-Israel in many of his past stances, coming out going, all right, Hamas, what you're doing with using human shields is deplorable, and this is an act of terrorism, and it's got to stop. And when you've got that happening from him particularly, I think it just means a little even more so that it's like everybody's starting to recognize, okay, these guys are... They're playing dirty.
For those who are watching along, let's put that photo back up of the play area, Ryan. These are the kids. These kids were so cute. They were so...
So they're in that, it's called the Big Blue Box. So there's a playground outside of this preschool. It's a fortified preschool, too. So it's a bomb shelter preschool. And it has a happy birthday party room. So they can have a birthday party without hearing sirens going off. Plus a playground. Plus a indoor soccer field. It was phenomenal. And I mean, that was really one of the most moving parts of the trip for me.
Show us these pictures. What are these pictures you have with you?
So this one is, so in all of when the bombing increased, one night I thought, what can we do? These kids are hitting shelters constantly, bomb shelters constantly. And I thought, what do we do? What can children do here? And so I started thinking we could draw pictures. Well, how do we get those there? And through the AIPAC annual meeting the other night, I met a man that was going to Jerusalem soon. And so some of these, some children in the area have been drawing pictures. And if you have grandkids, if you're a Sunday school teacher, if you have children of your own, that, these are some pictures that they're going to be sending to Jerusalem and just giving to the kids to give them some hope, some peace, to let them know that children in Iowa are praying for them. And these are really touching pictures. Some of them are scrabbles, so the moms added some little notes to them. But it's just a way to give them, some peace and some hope from the heartland.
When we're done, I will put on my Facebook, on the Truth for Our Time Facebook, I will put the link you had of the kids singing.
Yes.
When they know rockets are coming, instead of fretting and sitting under the desk, these kids have something similar to the Hokey Pokey.
Yeah, a little song they do.
It is the cutest little song. And I think that's what Israel, Denise, all that they take, all the bombing, the hardship, the Gaza Strip it's desert. I mean, listen, it's all desert. And they had a wonderful irrigation system. It was a productive land. And then now it's been destroyed, really, in essence. They continue to take every hardship and turn it for good.
Right. And these parents, the thing that really touched me is the people in Israel want just what we want. They want hope for their grandchildren and for their children's children, and that's what we want for our children. With the fight for the Common Core, And I thought, I don't know. I just think it's neat that this is something that we can do for these kids.
Well, we have the Genesis promise that we need to bless Israel to be blessed. And I know we need to leave Ryan as far as time. Ryan Northfield is my producer who does such a great job at making me look and sound good in a whip of a notice. But if you want to put up some of those memes that we have on my Facebook page, and here's what Benjamin Netanyahu says: if the Arabs will put down their weapons today, there would be no more war. If Israel would put down her weapons, there would be no more Israel. And it's just as simple as that. Robert, thank you for joining me.
Absolutely.
Denise, thank you for joining me. I appreciate the conversation. We need to come back and just do an Israel show. And for those of you out there, make a difference today. Do something positive that will last past tomorrow for someone else. And be encouraged. Never be complacent.